My name is Elaine Tackett, and my partner is Dennise Cruz, and together we constructed the project of quantifying bat consumption and use for medicine. Now you might be asking yourself, why do research about bats? What do bats contribute to for us? Well, bats actually contribute to multiple ecological functions, including pollination, seed dispersal, and pest control. And in a research paper, Exploitation of Bats for Bushmeat and Medicine by Dr. Mediestein, it found that approximately 13% of bat species are hunted. And the IUCN classified 116 species of bats as endangered. These are a lot of bats and we should be taking care of them due to their ecological functions.
Furthermore, we already knew that many countries use various alternative medicine, and this has been happening for many, many years. And it's very common knowledge that animal parts make up a large portion of traditional medicine. After spending the summer and the fall semester finding bat hunting around the world in different communities, we saw that many parts of the bats are claimed to serve several medicinal purposes. And through the course of our research, we know that bats are being used for medicinal purposes. However, we do not know the medicinal problems claimed to be solved by bats.
However, we do not know all the medical problems claimed to have been treated by bats. And this led us to formulate the hypothesis: if different cultures use bats for medical purposes, then we expect to see an array of medical uses because of the varying traditions and beliefs. With the goal of this research to quantify the variety of medical uses for bats, including the human body system targeted, ailments treated, and the different methods of administrating the bats and the body parts of the bats that were utilized.
We collected the data ourselves from data collected in our lab from the social media platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, as well as scientific literature. To do this, our labs were separated into different language teams, and we would then go through the hashtags in our language related to bats and would determine if the bat was persecuted, hunted, consumed, or used for medicinal purposes. For the scientific literature, we basically did the exact same, but instead of using hashtags, we used keywords. Afterwards, we reviewed the data posts that indicated that bats were either used or potentially used for medicinal purposes, so either yes or unknown, and input the data from there. The whole process was done using Microsoft Excel sheets, and you can see an example on the right.
So the first bar chart we constructed was comparing the number of data points collected to the specific ailments bats were supposed to be treating. And we removed 313 data points out of the total 523 data points due to them being labeled as unknown. And these data points really skewed our data and made it very hard for us to see the actual results, which were that mental health had the most data points, followed by epilepsy.
In addition to the ailments that bats cure, we also found that 95% of the bats were ingested and 5% were topically applied. In addition, we also found that the body parts that were used in the medicine were 73% fluids, 25% meat, 1% fat, and then 1% hair. As same as the ailments, we also had to remove points as well, just because they were unknown, and we really wanted to focus on what we did know. So for the administration of bats, we removed 483 data points out of the 523 data points. And for the body parts used in the medicine, we removed 304 data points out of the 523 total parts that were used.
Finally, we constructed a map showing the main ailments found in each country we specifically found data for. We found data in 18 different countries, all with various target ailments, and some of them had more than one top main ailment. And interestingly enough, we found 4 countries whose main targeted ailment was asthma, while mental health was the main ailment in only 2 countries.
When we first started our research, we just had social media data, and what we found was that asthma was the primary condition mentioned. But after we included both social media and scientific literature, mental health was mentioned the most. And not just mental health encompassed both depression, postpartum depression, and just mental conditions overall. And we also found that the bats were being mainly ingested and their fluids were primarily being used. And the fluids, as mentioned before, were blood and oil that the bat produced after being burned. The overall finding of so many conditions does align with our hypothesis, but our study does have its limits. One being that we had so many different data points removed because they were not specified. And this is why we started this research in particular. As stated before, we had a different research that we were looking at. We were looking at bat hunting overall, and there's just a lot of literature and a lot of scientific social posts and whatnot that mentioned medicinal purposes, but it didn't really say much about it. We just kept on looking after paper that bats were being hunted for medicinal purposes, and that's all it said. So we decided to delve deeper into this, and it shows also in our data, what we did find, we couldn't really find more. We tried to look at different people and we tried to ask different people on social media to clarify, but sometimes we just didn't get responses. So as stated before, our study does have limitations, and it's just that a lot of the data that we had to be removed. In addition, we only had 34 data points from social media. So the majority of the results that we do have are from scientific literature.
While we have not yet exhausted our resources and more data can be added through scientific literature and social media, based on our findings, continued research is needed to conclude if these medical conditions are treated by the use of bats. We want to see in a lab if the bats contain a chemical component that does help with asthma or that does help with depression or other mental health disorders. We also need more research to see if people have access to other healthcare in these regions. We want to see if they have access to inhalers or if they have access to therapy. And we want to have on-ground confirmation of this as well. And by pinpointing the ailments that bats are being used for, we can provide education and other medicines to be introduced to replace the usage of bats, therefore contributing to the overall reduction of bat hunting and increasing the conservation efforts.
We would also like to mention that on the left here, you're going to see citations that we use throughout the presentation. In addition, all the images that you saw today in our presentation were taken from our Instagram social media posts that were used and found through our research in our lab. And we would also like to thank Dr. Kingston, Abby, and the researchers within the Dr. Kingston lab for helping us with our research and for helping us with the data collection as well.
If you have any questions regarding our research, how we did something, our results, or anything at all, please contact us at elaine.tackett@ttu.edu or dendelac@ttu.edu. Thank you.